So most colorwork patterns are knit in the round, like my Damejakka Loppa, a beautiful pattern by Ann Meyer. A garment like this is generally knit in the round, and then once it's all done, it's steeked up the front, and then it opens up into a cardigan. So there's no purling required, it's completely knit, all knit stitches, and then you open it up and you see all your beautiful floats inside. Super simple, really easy. Highly recommend steeking, it's not scary at all. But you may come across some colorwork patterns that are knit flat, like the Throwback Cardigan, a really fun pattern by the wonderful and amazing Andrea Mowry. It is a cardigan, but it is knit completely flat. The pattern instructs you to knit from a colorwork chart, knitting your stitches on the right side, and then purling all of your stitches on the wrong side. And this was a completely new to me technique. It kind of threw me for a loop, pun not intended, but you know, it was a little bit of a learning curve, but then it dawned on me that, wait, I know how to knit with my left hand and I know how to knit with my right hand. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how I purl colorwork holding yarn in my right and left hand. And just a little heads up, this is where knowing how to knit both English and continental style will really come in handy. Even if you have no desire to change the way you knit, and by the way, this is just my humble opinion, I would highly recommend learning how to knit and purl using the opposite hand that you usually knit with. Continental knitting and purling has made my life so much easier when it comes to certain patterns, especially colorwork. Again, there is more than one way to do this, but this is just my method, and I hope it helps when it comes to knitting patterns like these. Alternatively, if I didn't want to knit this pattern flat, I could have done what I did with the Damejakka Loppa. I could have cast on all my stitches and then added a few 5 to 7 steeking stitches down the center and then joined my work in the round and just knit in the round. In hindsight, that is probably what I would have done with this pattern, but it didn't dawn on me until I had already cast on, so I'm just forging ahead and knitting this completely flat. It's a little bit more work than knitting in the round, obviously, but it's still a fun pattern to knit and I'm enjoying it. So I got a swatch started to show you guys, and it's just a simple colorwork checker pattern, or for some reason this reminds me of a Battenberg cake. I don't know why, go figure, my imagination runneth wild. And surprise, surprise, we have floats. So let's get this party going. We are going to tension our yarn in both hands. And the way I like to tension it is exactly how I tension my yarn when I'm holding it in my right and left hand. So because we just finished a purple square, it's time to start a new white square. So I'm gonna start with my right hand and purl 3. 1, oops, 2, oops, it's always a little wonky, but 3. And don't be afraid if you're not used to knitting with either hand, don't be afraid to stop and retension as necessary, because I am so not used to knitting with my left hand. I frequently need to stop and retension, and that's okay. And I like to purl with my left hand one of 2 ways. The first way is the traditional pivot, where you insert the needle and bring your finger down, pivot down, and bring that stitch through the white and off the needle. I'll do that again. You insert the needle, pivot the yarn down, under, over, pivot down, under, over. And now we're ready to purl with the white yarn with my right hand. So I'm going to insert the needle into the next stitch, and notice where I am positioning the purple yarn. I'm draping it between the 2 needles, so it rests there, and then I'm bringing the yarn around and under and purling that stitch. Insert, make sure that the yarn is draped between the 2 needles, and purl the stitch. Insert, purl, the stitch off. Okay. Okay, now we're ready to switch back to the purple yarn. So I'm gonna keep my non-working yarn out of the way and just stop to retension because I got some slack there. The other way that I like to purl is using the Norwegian purl method. And instead of holding my yarn to the front of the needle, I'm gonna bring it to the back. So I can insert my right needle into the next stitch, bring it around and around that yarn, under and over. And this looks really complicated, but it is super easy, guys. It's, with practice, it becomes such a fluid motion. And I have a tutorial on the Norwegian purl if you're interested in learning. Again, just another way to purl using your left hand. Hold your yarn to the back of your needle, your left needle, insert your right needle into the next stitch, bring your needle back and around the yarn, under and over and lift it off. Back around. Da-da-da. Dun-da-da. Really descriptive words, right? Okay, so now we're done knitting with the purple yarn and we're going to switch back to the white yarn. And again, I'm draping this yarn between the two needles, like so. And you might come to a point where you'll have to catch your yarn. So if you have a really long float and you want to catch it somewhere in the middle so it's not just hanging out there where it's prone to snags and such. And the way that I catch the float is by inserting my right needle and instead of draping the yarn between the needles, I pivot it down. So I hold the purple yarn out of the way and then I purl the next stitch. So you can see that yarn is caught right there by that strand, and I'll do that again. So I'm about to purl the next stitch, but instead of keeping the yarn between the two needles, I bring it down in front of the back of my work and then purl the next stitch and lift it off, and it's caught. And again, catching your floats is a way to manage super long floats so they don't get snagged on buttons or jewelry that you might have, and you know, it looks neater. I prefer to catch my floats every 5 to 7 stitches, if that makes sense. And I'm just gonna continue on at normal pace so you can see what that looks like. And it is a lot slower, but again, practice makes perfect. So you get faster as you find a rhythm. Okay, and that is what that row looks like. And now we're just going to knit across the next row and we're ready to start a new purl row. And if knitting with 2 hands is just not happening for you, I am going to show you another alternative method of just knitting with the hand you're most comfortable with. And a really awesome viewer shared this tip with me, and thank you, whoever you are. I'm completely blanking on your name, but I'll pop your name on the screen right here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This was amazing. And with this technique, you're going to purl across the row using one color, slipping the other color stitches. So if you're an English knitter like me, you're just going to purl with the white yarn, and then slip the purple yarn. Purl the white yarn and slip the purple yarn. Purl the white yarn. And this is, if you're familiar with brioche, it's a lot like brioche because you're doing 2 separate passes of the same row, if that makes sense. Okay, and then we're gonna slip those last stitches. So we've come to the end of the row, and now we're gonna slide our work back to the other side of the needle. And because we've already worked the white stitches, we are going to slip those. And I've been slipping those as if to purl. And we've come to the purple yarn now, so I'm going to purl those with the purple yarn that was waiting for me at the beginning of the row. Purl. Now we're going to slip the white stitches because those have already been worked. Purl. And this is brilliant too if you are working with more than 2 colors, like the Throwback Cardigan that I'm knitting that I showed you at the beginning. It just makes it so much more manageable. Slip, slip, and purl, purl, purl. And there you go, you've worked a purl row of color work. and it looks beautiful. I'm often asked how to keep my yarn manageable when I'm knitting colorwork, how I keep it from tangling. Every couple of rows, every like 3 rows or so, just do a check of your yarn. Make sure, you know, just untwist it, untangle it early on before it gets too out of control, and that will save you a big headache if you wait too long and then, you know, have to sit there and untwist and untangle all of your unruly yarns. So hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, I wish there was a magic trick to it. If you guys have a trick to keeping your yarn in check, definitely share in the comments below. I'd love to hear any tips that you guys might have. So now I'm just gonna speed things up a little bit so you can see what that looks like. And again, I'm not the fastest at this. But I hope you guys are finding this helpful. I'm gonna try Norwegian purling that one. And when it comes to catching a float, again, you're gonna drop this yarn down, wrap it around, and purl. So, and that will catch your float. And as far as I know, I'm only able to catch the yarn that I'm holding in my left hand, not my right. So let's say I suddenly want to catch the purple yarn, I will have to switch hands in order to catch that yarn if I wanna do that. But if you guys have any tips or tricks for catching the yarn with either hand, again, leave them in the comments below because I would love, love, love to know, and I'm sure a lot of other viewers would love to know as well. Let's Norwegian purl that one. So, and I really love how there's just more than one way to do one thing in knitting. I think that's the coolest thing about knitting. There's no one right or wrong way to do anything. And yeah, and that's it. And there you go. We're almost done with our Bat and Bird cake swatch. So I hope you guys found this tutorial helpful. If you did, please let me know in the comments below. If you didn't and still have questions, by all means, feel free to ask me. If you guys want to keep up to date with my podcast and any other videos that I put out on this channel, just like and subscribe below, and I will see you next time. Happy knitting, bye!